What's up, everybody? Sorry I haven't made a video in so long. I know most of you guys know I was sick a couple weeks ago, or maybe 3 weeks ago. I had bronchitis. I was pretty sick for a little bit over a week, and then the following week I didn't make any videos because my voice still sounded kind of messed up. I still kind of have a little bit of a lingering cough, but I'm good. You know, I'm ready to go. So anyway, just want to say welcome back to my followers. Um, Hope you guys haven't gotten impatient and jumped off the ship. And I'm back with some more prison stories for you. I know I kind of have to rebuild that following up because I did a lot of paranormal videos for October, and apparently a lot of the prison story people are not fans of paranormal. But anyway, so just quick, once again, don't forget to hit like, subscribe if you're a new listener, and then once again, I'm going to pin a donation link in the comments. And obviously, it's not mandatory. If you're feeling generous, just give whatever you can. 5, 10, 15, $20, whatever you can give is much appreciated. Like I've said before, I'm not trying to really make a living off this channel, just trying to make a little bit of extra money for gas or whatever, to supplement my income, because I enjoy telling you guys my prison stories and my paranormal stories too. So anyway, this is going to be another video in a series of unlucky COs. This is part 3, and so I'll get right to it. The first story is another story from C, Central Arizona Detention Center. It's a federal detention center in Florence, Arizona. The name of the company was Corrections Corporation of America. They changed it to something else now, but it's not important. Still the same crooked ass private prison. So anyway, this story happened in 1200 unit, which was one of the units that I worked quite a bit. It was a high custody unit, and it was a U.S. Marshal contract. And so, there was always a lot of stuff going on there, a lot of fights. There was some stabbings. There was some inmates got beat pretty bad with lock in a sock and stuff like that. But this particular story involves a lieutenant that I knew for a long time. This lieutenant, I'm not gonna say his name, but we'll just call him Lieutenant E. That's the first letter of his last name. And he seemed like a fairly cool dude. I never really hung out with him or anything like that outside of work. But he seemed all right as far as work goes. I always thought he was kind of a little bit goofy or something. There was just something about him. But after seeing this dude involved in 2 different assaults, in my opinion, I just decided this dude's either really unlucky or just he needs to find a different profession, because anyway, I'll get into the story. So basically what happened was one day, I'll give you a little background on the inmate first that was involved before I get to the actual story. So the inmate that was involved was a young native inmate, and he had just gotten to our unit maybe about, I don't know, a couple of weeks before. But when I first seen him on the rec yard, right away he caught my eye and just kind of gave me a bad feeling. He was kind of big. He was maybe about 5'11" or 6 foot, but he was in really good shape. Looked like he worked out a lot, and he just looked really I just remember noticing him that he was looked really trying to think of the best way to describe him. Just seemed kind of unpredictable and kind of real shifty, and just seemed like the other inmates kind of kept their distance from him. Just the dude seemed really unpredictable, right? And I don't know how else to say it. My spidey sense was kind of tingling when I first noticed this dude. I just had a bad feeling about him. And so like no joke, maybe like 2 weeks later, um, and it was something that happened with this inmate too that kind of added to him like doing what he did. But I'll kind of tell you guys that after I tell you what happened. So basically, we were serving chow. I think it was lunch, and we had our kind of like our worst pod out there, like our pod where we had the most high custody like troublemakers, and not to pick on any particular race, but there was a lot of native inmates in that pod, and they were like pretty rowdy, like some of our most rowdy, like just dangerous inmates that we had to keep an eye on, right? So it was almost towards the end of the pod, like most of the inmates had already gotten their lunch tray and went back in the pod, right? So the way it's set up, just to kind of give you an image, is like we usually open the side exit door to the pod, and then we have like when it's a kind of a dangerous pod like that, we usually do one tier at a time. So we'll do the bottom tier first, and then we'll do the top tier, and then that way there's not too many high custody inmates out in the hallway at one time. So anyway, there was maybe about, I'd say like 12 to 15 inmates in the chow line, and like maybe I'd say like 5 or 6 of them were natives, and that young native inmate was one of them. And so I was in the control center that day, which I was pretty pissed and pretty frustrated that I wasn't on the floor, working the floor, so I couldn't respond to what happened. I couldn't really do anything except just basically yell orders, from the control on the intercom, and that's about all I could do, right? So I think there was I think there was 2 floor officers and then 1 rec officer, so a total of 3 officers and then 1 lieutenant. So what happened was when that young native inmate came up to the area where there's like big windows, and then there's like a room, and inside of that room is they have the chow carts, and then they have the inmates that are the porters, the chow porters or line servers is what they call them, that they serve the meals and everything. And then so the inmates are lined up against the wall, and then they go around the corner, and there's like a plexiglass window, and then there's like a slot. They slide the trays out to them, So this young native inmate was he was kind of like banging on the windows, trying to get the attention of the line servers. A lot of the inmates do it, they like tell them like, hook it up, like put more food on my tray or something like that, right? So, usually we're constantly like telling them, hey, stop banging on the window or whatever, like chill out with that or whatever, right? So the way the lieutenant approached it was, in my opinion, was like totally wrong, because he kind of like started way up here, and basically from what he told the inmate, there was like kind of like no backing out. Like he basically like put out a challenge to the inmate, which was because after the inmate banged the window a couple times, he kind of like started, like he was kind of like playing like making it sound like bass on the window, because when you hit the windows, it kind of like goes doom doom, like kind of a bass sound. So I think he was kind of like trying to do a beat on the window or something, right? And once again, just to describe this inmate, he was about 5'11", looked like he was in really good shape. He had long hair, pretty lean dude, and like I said, just really unpredictable. And I always had a bad feeling, like when I saw him, just like it was like he was a ticking time bomb, basically. So this lieutenant sees him doing this, and I could hear him, because you can still hear when you're inside the control center, because there's like a little opening and stuff. And plus, I put on the speaker on the outside, and I can hear what's going on. But anyways, I heard the lieutenant tell him, hey, stop banging on the damn window or you're going to be cleaning it. He told him something like that, right? So as soon as I heard the lieutenant tell that inmate that, I was like, oh shit, here we go. Because as soon as the lieutenant told him that, the inmate kind of looks at the lieutenant and goes, yo, fuck that, like that. And so the lieutenant kind of looks at him and he kind of walks towards him and he tells him, hey, get out of line and come over here to the other side, like to the other side of the wall. So the inmate kind of he walks out of line, kind of takes a few steps towards the lieutenant, and then he kind of did one of these. He goes, like he was going to, do something, right? So the lieutenant kind of like flinched back a little bit. And then this is, in my opinion, like, I'm not trying to be like a backseat driver or like a Monday morning quarterback or whatever they call it. But I think the lieutenant really messed up because in that situation, I think he should have backed off, pulled out his gas, and then basically told the dude, you need to chill out, get on the wall or I'm going to spray you or something like that, right? Instead, this lieutenant pulled out his handcuffs and kind of like went towards the inmate and tried to like grab his hand to like put his handcuffs on. Like, you don't never handcuff somebody like that. So of course, as soon as the lieutenant reached like that, the inmate kind of pulled his hands away and he threw a wide punch, right? But it had a lot of power in it because he swung his whole body. He goes like this, he goes, boom, and like caught the lieutenant right across right here and split his shit open bad. I mean, as soon as he hit him, the lieutenant kind of goes like this, like kind of bent over like that, and blood was just like gushing out, right? And so, luckily, one of the COs right away seen what happened. Actually, two of one, but one was like pretty close. And he wasn't a very big dude, but he was a pretty tough dude. He was actually a combat veteran in the Army. He had done like 2 or 3 tours in Iraq, so he was a pretty tough dude. And then another CO that was kind of like down at the entrance, because we always have a CO standing down there where they come out and in from. So those 2 COs seen right away what happened, right? And then there was another CO that was getting ready to open the next pod, but he was like all the way across the hall, like pretty far away. So like as soon as that happened, the CO that was right next to him kind of ran towards him. And he did a pretty good move. He basically pinned the inmate against the wall, and then he kind of did like a double leg takedown and like took him down to the ground, right? So the other CO that was pretty close by came running and kind of jumped on top and started helping him secure the inmate, right? So the other CO, like I was yelling to him, like telling him what's going on. So he came running, and then I called it on the radio too, code red, in 1200 unit. So the other CO came running and kind of jumped on too, and they're like holding the inmate, trying to secure him, right? So the others, they told the rest of the inmates to go in the pod and lock down, and I was yelling at them on the intercom too, go in your pod and lock down, and luckily they listened, I mean, they were like talking shit, like, yo, fuck, that's bullshit, that's fucked up, or, but they're always going to say that. I mean, at that point, everybody was doing everything by the book. Nobody did anything, extra or threw any extra punches, which is probably good because, maybe some more inmates might have jumped in, So those inmates went in the pod, and one of the COs, locked the door, secured them in there, right? So at that point, a lot more staff came running down because, anytime you call code red, that means staff being assaulted. It's always going to get like the highest, the fastest response, right? So bunch more COs came running down, and the dude was still trying to put up a fight. He was still trying to get away. And one of the COs, I seen it happen too, and like right away I was like, oh man, this CO's probably going to get fired. Because this CO kind of came running up, and I guess, he was just mad because he saw the lieutenant like bleeding all over the place. So he kneed the dude, like, I don't remember if he kneed him in the head or in the ribs or whatever. But there was this other sergeant standing right there. And, I know what a lot of people are going to say, like, oh, you guys are just like cops. You guys do shit and then you back each other up. You don't turn each other in or whatever. But, hey, I'm old school. In my opinion, unless somebody does something really fucked up that's like really uncalled for, like I didn't see shit. I wasn't gonna say nothing, and neither were any of the other COs. But and I know some of you might not agree with it. Hey, I'm just being honest with you. But that other sergeant that saw it happen, he was kind of a little snitch. Like a lot of us didn't like him. He was just a paper pusher. Like he was a total pussy. Like he would get his ass whipped in a fucking fight, like quick by any inmate, right? He was just a paper pusher. So he seen what that CO did, and right away he got his little notebook out and started writing something down. And I saw him do that. I was like, oh, that CO's fucked. He's gone. So that CO ended up losing his job. I don't remember who it was, but that sergeant ended up getting blackballed by everybody. Nobody would talk to him. Everybody was like being, total dicks to him. And that fool, he ended up I think he ended up transferring or resigning. I don't remember. He was like crying to the lieutenants and captains, and nobody would talk to him and shit. But so anyway, afterward, we found out that I mean, I'm sure a lot of staff already knew, but we found out that dude had just been sentenced to 25 to life. So he didn't give a fuck. He already was, seemed like a dangerous dude, but once he got sentenced, he was like, I ain't got nothing to lose. I'm already probably going to do life in prison. So he was just waiting for an opportunity for somebody to say the wrong thing to him or set him off, And that lieutenant, unfortunately for him, man, he said the wrong shit to that inmate and got fucked up for it, But so that's my first story. And then the crazy thing is my second story involves that same lieutenant. And this is why I was kind of talking shit, saying like, man, this lieutenant either needs to learn how to fight, but he's kind of an older dude, so it might be too late for that. Or he needs to find a different profession, man. I hope by now he retired, maybe found something different to do. Because this other time, this story was in same facility, Central Arizona Detention Center. But this one happened in the front half in 500 unit, because that facility is so big. It's usually houses about 3,300 to 3,500 detainees. It was divided into two halves. It's just kind of how they divided it. So the front half and the back half were counted separately and run by different main controls. But it was all one big building, like 2 floors, and just a huge jail, And it was mainly U.S. Marshals, but like I've said before, there was some Homeland Security detainees and ICE, but mostly U.S. Marshals. So anyway, this happened in 500 unit, and 500 unit also had I think 2 or 3 high custody pods, and two of the detainees that were involved in this story, I had a long history with, and I'm gonna tell a story in another video about them because there's a lot more to the story. But today I'm just gonna kind of give a condensed version of what happened to that lieutenant and 2 other COs. So I think there was a total of maybe 6 or 7 detainees, and they were on the rec yard, and these guys had this planned out. Like I said, there's a lot more to it, but these guys had it planned out. They did this on a Sunday because they knew that day was our lowest staff day, and almost every unit had 1 officer to the floor. And so they knew there would be a really small number of COs that would be able to respond to this, right? So what they did is they just kind of they acted up on the rec yard until they all got kicked off the rec yard because they were just, I don't remember what they were doing, talking shit to the rec CO or not listening or something, but there was 7 of them. So I think 4 of them were Sureños, and then I think 2 or 3 of them were Chiefs. I'm pretty sure they were Chiefs. So they got kicked off the rec yard, but instead of sending them into their pods, for whatever reason, they had them wait on in the hallway, and I don't think there was even any CO out there watching them. And then like the way the captain's office, because the captain's office was right next to 500 unit, and the way they had the captain's office set up, I didn't really agree with this. Like I think it was kind of a bad situation waiting to happen. But they had the windows mirrored, so you can't even see in there, right? And then they were keeping the door locked, so you don't have access to it. Like if you're locked, so and I think the only ones that had keys to it was like the, like sergeant and above, right? So what ended up happening was these inmates were waiting to go into the captain's office to, but they were going to go in one by one and talk to each one of them individually, right? So what they did was they knew that it was really short staffed, right? So there was that lieutenant in there, and there was this really old CO, like maybe like in his 60s, and then there was this other CO that was like I think maybe like in his 30s, and so what they did was they waited for the captain's door to open, right? To call one of them in to talk to him, and they just all bum rushed the door and knocked that CO out of the way. And they all six or seven of them, there was either six or seven, I don't remember. They all bum rushed and went in, right? And they just tore that freaking captain's office up. They beat the shit out of the old CO. He probably got knocked out the first punch, right? They beat the shit out of that lieutenant again. And I don't remember how far apart these ass beatings were that lieutenant got, but it wasn't that far apart. And then the only one that kind of like held out for a little bit, and I give him a lot of credit, man, because he was the only one in there really fighting against, like probably like three or four inmates, was the young CO. And we'll just call him, his first initial was C, so we'll just call him C. Um, he said he landed some punches, and he was able to land some punches on the other inmates until he got overwhelmed. And he said one of the inmates, this native inmate, was a pretty big dude, and he had some big old fists, and I guess supposedly his nickname was like I don't remember, like something hands of rock hands or some bullshit like that. But anyways, this I guess he said that dude put a couple of hits on him, and he said he went down, and like I think he like crawled under a desk or something. But hey, I don't blame the dude. He was outnumbered, like by a lot, right? So anyway, again, when this shit happened, I was in a different unit, but I was working a control. So I was in 1000 control, which is our intake unit, and it's far down the hall from the captain's office because it's way in the back half of the facility. But you can see all the way down the hall. It's like pretty far, but you can see, right? And I just remember once again seeing this lieutenant, like, and this is after I heard all the radio traffic, code red, captain's office, and then it took a long time because they ended up, they had to get a team together of like this female sergeant, and then like a couple of officers from transportation, because they were like the only extra officers. There was like maybe like I don't know 5 or 6 of them, I think. And they ended up getting the door open, and they started spraying gas in there, and I think they might have thrown like a gas grenade in there too or something like that, and then they finally ended up getting the inmates handcuffed and stuff. But I guess the inmates were like throwing a bunch of stuff at them, like whatever they could get their hands on, like computer monitors, all kinds of shit, chairs and shit. But anyway, I remember after they finally got it under control, they were bringing that same lieutenant down the hallway. Looked like another CO and like a nurse or something, and he was all bloody again. And I just remember thinking, God damn, like they got that fucking lieutenant again. Like fuck, man. Like I felt really bad for the dude. Like I'm not making fun of him or anything. I'm just like, damn, bro. Like I don't know, man. Like I can, maybe I'm blessed or lucky, or maybe because, I always had a lot of respect from the inmates, and maybe because they knew I could box too, and they knew it wouldn't be an easy fight, But I never ended up like that, thank God, but I just felt bad for the dude. Like, damn, man, you got fucked up like bad twice within like, I know it was less than a year or so. I just remember thinking like, damn, homeboy needs to find a different job or a different career or something, you know what I'm saying? But anyway, like I said, there's a lot more to that story, but I'm gonna save that for a different video because it's like a whole long big story. That's just one little part of it. So anyway, my third story is uh, is about a case manager, and this was in 1000 unit when it was DC inmates. We used to have DC inmates from obviously from Washington DC, and the majority of them were lifers because DC doesn't have the death penalty. Um, so a lot of them were doing life for like murder, rape, armed robbery, like arson, like just dangerous dudes. Like they were one of the most dangerous contracts that we ever had there. And we I don't know, like we got lucky. Like there was no major disturbances, no major riots while we had them there, and they tore up a couple of other facilities before they came to us. But I guess the people that ran our facility, Central Arizona Detention Center, I guess they were pretty smart when they brought them. They gave them a lot of stuff to keep them busy, like a lot of programs. Um, and they even had some people are going to trip out, but they even had PlayStations for them. They had like a room set up in the hallway with about five PlayStations in there, and so it kept them busy. Like always kept them occupied. They always had stuff to do, right? So maybe that's one of the reasons why they didn't tear up, our facility. But anyway, this case manager that used to work down there, I guess he was I don't know, he was having issues with this one DC inmate that was just always like he was like an indigent inmate, like with no family, no money, so he was always like I don't know, always wanted stuff, right? Always wanted more than what they were allowed to be given, right? So they were always kind of like arguing and stuff, like jawing at each other. So I guess one day that detainee decided, and just real quick, I don't know if you guys like pretty much just assume this or not, but the majority of the inmates from DC obviously were black. Like some of them were like maybe Latino, like Puerto Rican or Dominican, but the majority of them were black. I don't think there was. No, I'm not gonna say I don't think there was no white inmates from DC. It was all black, and then about maybe like two or three Puerto Rican inmates. So this was a black inmate that was having issues with this case manager, right? And the case manager was a white dude, so of course the inmate kept saying he was racist and this and that, but he wasn't. He was a pretty fair dude. It was just that inmate wasn't getting what he wanted and was just I don't know playing the victim, whatever, frustrated over his situation. So he planned it out one day that he was going to get back at that case manager. So he came in there. And he had a lock in his sock, like stuffed in his pants or somewhere. I don't know where he had it hidden, but as soon as he came in there, saying that he needed to talk to him, and so as soon as he came in there, he was talking to him, and then he pulled out that lock in his sock, and these guys practice how to use these things, so he just like he whipped it around and whacked him right across the forehead, and like split his forehead open and then just commenced to, beating the crap out of him with that lock in the sock. But, luckily that the case manager said that he almost went unconscious, but he was able to key his radio because he was kind of a small guy too. And the inmate was like pretty big, of course, like over 6 foot. He was able to key his radio and just yell, like code red, or whatever, 1000 case manager's office. And so, people responded and saved his ass, basically. You know what I mean? But that was probably one of the worst things that happened with the DC inmates. There was a couple of other staff assaults, but I think that was like probably the worst one. And then, but actually, after they left our facility, I think they went to Tennessee. And while they were there at Tennessee, they rioted because when they got over there, they tried to be like real strict with them and they tried to like take all their programs away and stuff. And so sometimes that's the wrong answer to, do with with like a population of inmates that basically doesn't have nothing to lose because the majority of them are lifers. You know, I'm not saying give them everything they want, but sometimes you got to give them a reason not to fuck shit up, basically, you know? So they ended up killing a staff while they were at that facility after they left our facility. Like maybe 2 months later was that happened, and they killed the staff member and like seriously assaulted a bunch of other staff members. But one more thing happened before the DCs left our facility, and this one was actually the staff was actually lucky, but could have got probably killed or seriously fucked up. And it's kind of a funny story, at least in my opinion. So like, basically what happened was one night in I think it was 1100 unit back before 11 because 1100 unit eventually became the female unit, but this was when it was still like it used to be the intake unit before they moved it to 1000 unit. So anyway, the DC inmates were temporarily moved there because there was 4 pods of them, and then I think each pod had like about 60 to 70 inmates. Because these were inmates, they weren't detainees. They were already sentenced, so they were considered prisoners, inmates, not detainees. So anyway, there was like 4 pods of them, right? And it was like maybe a couple of weeks before they were supposed to be shipped out to Tennessee. And so like, I'm not even trying to sound racist or anything. This is just a story because, I mean, I'm Chicano or Mexican or whatever, and one of my favorite things to eat is fried chicken. So I'm just telling the story. I'm just stating the facts. So on this particular night, they were being served fried chicken, right? And a lot of them were complaining that it was undercooked. Which hey, if it was, I don't blame them. I wouldn't eat undercooked chicken either, right? So a lot of them were complaining it was undercooked, right? So the lieutenant that was there, um, he called down to the kitchen and said for the cook to come down there and to talk to him because he was saying his chicken is undercooked because I guess the lieutenant had checked some of the pieces and I guess it looked undercooked to him too, right? So this cook, I don't remember his name, but I think he was like I don't know if he was like, I think he was like half white and half Mexican. I couldn't tell, but he was kind of a tall dude, like maybe about 6'2". Um, and he looked like he could be Mexican or white. I'm not sure, but I just know the dude was crazy, like acted crazy. I think he was like a veteran, like a I think like I don't remember what war he was in, but I don't remember if he was old enough to be in Vietnam, but he was an older dude, and I just remember hearing that he was a veteran, and he acted kind of crazy, and he cussed a lot. Like every other word he said was like a cuss word. So this dude comes down, he's wearing his apron, and he's got a freaking spatula in his hand. And he comes down and he walks into the pod and he starts yelling at the DC inmates. And I'm just quoting what this dude said. He was like, "You black motherfuckers." He's like, "You're gonna eat this fucking chicken. It's cooked. You lying sons of bitches, and this and that." I mean, he was just going off. I'm just looking at my notes right here to make sure I don't forget anything. But yeah, he was just like going off on them, right? And I was like looking at him because I was working the floor with a couple other COs and the lieutenant. Luckily, the lieutenant was down there, to handle the situation because I was looking at this dude like, "You're about to fucking die, man," and I ain't fucking stopping him. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because the stuff he was saying to them, like, I'm not gonna say he deserved to die, but if he would have got the shit beat out of him, like, hey, I'd have been like, "Hey, man, you fucking asked for it." You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I would have went in to get him, but with a full squad of a full team with gas and everything to go in there and pull him out. You know what I'm saying? Like, dude pretty much asked for it. Stuff he was yelling, right? So luckily, the lieutenant kind of stepped up to him because like basically we were kind of standing like at the opening of the pod. It was like me, the lieutenant, and then that stupid idiot cook, right? And he's like waving his spatula in the air, like yelling at them and cussing at them. Like I said, calling them black mother effers, saying that they need to eat the fucking chicken, that they're full of crap, that it's cooked all the way and this and that. So basically the lieutenant yelled at him, told him, you need to shut the fuck up and get out of the fucking pod before I let these guys beat the fuck out of you. So he was pissed and he was like, still mouthing off and stuff, but he got his ass out of the pod. And basically the lieutenant was like, probably was the right move, told the inmates to just, we're going to get you some new chicken, don't worry about it. We're going to replace, all the, the undercooked pieces, so, he was able to, squash the situation or whatever. But, yeah, that dude, he was lucky as hell that he didn't get dealt with, and like I said, man, he might have got us fucked up too, because, I'm saying, they might have just been like, fuck it, it's a free for all, basically. So, anyway, that's another addition to my Unlucky COs series. Hope you guys liked it. Once again, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and leave comments. I love to read you guys' comments and interact with you guys. And till my next video, your homeboy Big Cisco. Peace.